I'm live? Okay. Spooky, I need your spot. Hi, everybody. Welcome. Is anyone here? Say hi if you are. Hi, welcome to this week's costume breakdown. I wanted to talk a little bit about something I'm kind of excited about. I may or may not be a huge fan of The Little Mermaid. Okay, I'm a huge fan of The Little Mermaid, and I am super excited about this new movie coming up. I really am. Like, I wasn't because, let's be honest, I have not been enjoying the live action remakes of Disney movies in general. But I'm really excited about The Little Mermaid. That is my favorite. Up there with like Cinderella and Little Mermaid were the two movies that got me through childhood. And so I'm really excited to see the live action version. Like so excited. So last week I was like wondering what the coolest costume is going to be, and I'm like, Disney princesses are always classic, but I think this year Little Mermaid's going to dominate. She's kind of one of the more difficult princesses to do because of the mermaid tail. I know you could go for the ball gown, the sail dress, the blue dress. One year, actually 2015, according to my Instagram feed, I was every version of the Little Mermaid. Like I did her blue dress with the black corset and the the blouse. I did her sail dress that was made out of the sail. I did her classic Little Mermaid tail, and I didn't do the pink dress actually. I wonder why I didn't end up doing that. But anyways, I wasn't planning on being her for Halloween, but I did make a Little Mermaid swimsuit top for the beginning of summer, and I could not find it today. I wanted to show you guys, so I'll have to show you guys later. But looks like some people are here. Hi, Odin! You're here! And we have Maker Bats and Will Connors. Bernie Davis, you're at work and can't stay for this stream, but wanted to say hi. Well, thank you, Bernie Davis. Welcome. So we're here, we're going to chat costumes, and we're going to talk about Halloween. I know it's not like, some people it is that big of a deal, but this is when we started picking up hours at the costume shop, because this is when people start thinking about the costumes that they're going to do, because if you start sourcing your materials now, it's significantly cheaper. Not cheaper, but you have a chance to get it cheaper and look for sales and alternative ways of doing things to try and get the prices down. But sorry, I'm like reading the chat while I try to talk. It's not the best thing to do at the same time. But Maker Bats, yay, you said my name right this time. Yes, I did. The double T should make it go, oh, you don't pronounce the consonant. Anyways, that's my California education for you. But welcome. So yeah, this is the time in the costume shop we start really picking up business. And it got me kind of thinking, like, some of my favorite costumes over the years. And I really like the ones that make me laugh. And I feel like you can really go all out in Halloween and just do silly, ridiculous things. One of my favorite ones that I've done, now it's kind of out, like, it's a little dated. It was cool like 10 years ago, 5 years ago maybe. But I thought it was hilarious to dress burly men as toddlers in tiaras with the little lace gloves, the fluffy pink dress, and the go-go juice. That one just always made me laugh because, like, you get in such characters into these costumes. And another one that made me laugh are SNL characters, like somebody that was the coffee talk lady, and my friend JJ ended up doing it, I believe, and he had this old 80s sweater he rented from the costume shop with keys all over it, and got the nails done and the wig with the glasses, and he's like, now discuss amongst yourselves. It was hilarious because you get into the character and it makes me laugh. Yeah. I know there's the how do you put this? There are characters that you feel like you can dress up as because you either look like them or you relate to them or you feel like you can pull them off. But then there's the characters that you really love that you're like, I could never dress up as them because I don't look nothing like that. But those are my favorites. I feel like Halloween is the time that you get to play. Like, you know how many men I've taught to dress to wear heels at the costume shop? Wait on your toes, not your heels. Wait on your toes. One foot in front of the other. Wait on your toes, not the heels. Like it's a fun time to really explore and play and get a chance to feel like somebody that you're not and just really get out of your comfort zone. Um, but what kind of costumes do you guys want to talk about today? Is there any characters that you guys are looking to try and replicate? I know last week we were talking about Black Panther claws, retractable claws, and some pirates. Let me see. Oh, okay. But yeah, let me know if there's any costumes that you'd like help with or to break down, or if you have any hilarious ideas. I have no idea what I'm going to be for Halloween, but I know what I'm going to be for work at Halloween. I found this really great lace skeleton poncho, I guess you could say. Anyways, I'm going to make that into something fun, and I'm working on that. Hmm. Hmm. Click, click. Sorry, this is a little. I'm pulling up a couple of the costumes that I have been thinking about. So one of the ones that I was thinking about doing was Spinelli from Recess. I have a red dress. I have the black little jacket she wears. I have the combat boots. The two things that I'm missing are the leggings, the orange and yellow striped leggings, and the beanie. But I feel like those are simple that I could get for under 20 bucks. And then I could be Spinelli with my hair, doing it in little messy pigtails. That one I thought would be a fun one, but that seemed a little too easy. Um, and it got me kind of thinking about what kind of costumes could you do with things you already have. Let me turn this down. It's a little bright. Yeah. But different costumes that you could do with things out of the closet. I know I have a lot of stuff that normally people don't have in their closet from working in a costume shop, working in fashion, and making a lot of weird things. So I was always trying to think of different costumes that you could do. And I feel like if you have like a good dress shirt in black or white, that gives me a lot of options to just get started and going. But it looks like we actually have a question. Maker Bats, I have a question. When sewing stretchy fabrics like spandex, should you keep it stretched or loose when running through the sewing machine? That's a very good question. There's a whole pattern brand called Stretch and Sew. They make patterns specifically for knit fabrics, and by the name, you're supposed to stretch as you sew. But saying that, you'll get wonky seams. They'll get all stretched out. Now, if you don't like those stretched out seams, you can iron them. A lot of steam, and it'll bring the fabric back together. But also, you don't have to stretch as you sew. Don't use a straight stitch. Use a stretch stitch if your machine has it. You can also use a zigzag, not my favorite because it pulls the seams like this, because you'll have the zigzags and then it'll pull and then you'll get little horizontal lines all the way down the side of your seam. It's something you don't think about, but once you see it, you're like, oh yeah, that's what that is. I don't typically stretch when I'm sewing on a serger because there's a natural stretch in that seam, in the way that seam works anyways. But you can get away with a lot with stretch fabrics. I know it feels like they're really hard and wonky because they're stretchy, but I need to turn those notifications off. But so the bridal gowns that I make are made out of stretch knit fabric. They're cotton knits and they're really comfortable. And while I'm sewing, I don't stretch them out as I sew. We use serger, we use a lot of things, but I don't like to super stretch it out. But if it does get stretched out, I steam it and it goes back into shape. How do I turn the sound off of this? Ah, okay, well, I'll turn that off next time it pops up, sorry. So, I know that question's all over there. Yes, you're supposed to stretch. No, don't stretch. It's okay if it does stretch a little bit. Let me just turn on the sound. Ah, jeez. Turn off notifications. There we go. I thought I just turned that off. All right. So I do not know how to turn that sound off. I apologize. I will handle it later. I can't multitask at the same time, apparently. But yes, you do stretch as you sew. No, don't super stretch it out. Make sure your tension's right. I think tension has a big deal. It has a lot to do with how your fabrics end up behaving overall. If your tension's high, tension meaning like high tension means like it's really tight. I turn up the tension when I'm sewing waistbands on stretch fabrics because I want it to hold tight and I want it to gather, and I don't want it to pull. So I will turn up the tension when I'm doing elastic and waistbands, but I will turn down the tension when I'm just sewing regular seams. So you have to watch the tension because that's where you get the really wonky seams, especially on the serger or the zigzag stitch. I think the zigzag really makes a big difference because I do a zigzag to attach waistbands at the elastic and I turn up the tension, and you can stretch and sew that, but I don't. I put the elastic on top and I have the fabric underneath and I let the feed dogs, and when I say feed dogs, those little things at the bottom of the sewing machine that push your fabric through, those are called feed dogs. Those are pushing your fabric through and they're on the bottom and they're not on the top. People like walking feet, a walking foot on your sewing machine because it pushes your fabric through at the top as well as the bottom. I haven't had a lot of experience playing with those. I usually just take my time and turn down, keep the tension soft, not soft, but I put whatever fabric I want to get gathered into the other fabric on the bottom, and I let the feed dogs do the gathering for me, and I keep the top nice and loose and kind of feed it through gingerly as opposed to stretching and sewing it through, which is the typical traditional way because you get that stretch and sew. But you can easily overstretch, and if you do overstretch, steam. If your fabric's iron and steamable, not all knits you can iron. And I don't know if it's a myth, but I remember being told that you don't really need to iron while you're working with knits, which is kind. You really, really, really have to press as you sew if you're sewing regular woven fabrics that don't have any extra stretch. It just makes a really clean seam. Knits, they kind of lay flatter. They kind of are a little bit easier to work with. But if you start to get that wiggle in your seams, the steam will just kind of put everything relaxed back to where it belongs. So super long, overly explained version of it, but feel free to ask me any of those questions. I will give you my due diligence on them. Yeah. If you use a straight stitch and you don't stretch as you sew, as soon as you put it on, it's going to pop your seams, and that's where you're going to have all your issues. A stretch stitch looks like a straight stitch, but it's one step forward, one step back, one step forward, one step back, one step. So it's a little bit of a staggered straight stitch. So it's like a zigzag, but vertical. And that way you get more stretch in your seam to work with the movement. And that's why you should use a straight stitch. I mean, a stretch stitch and not a straight stitch, but a zigzag stitch will technically work. But I am going to try one more time to turn off this beeping. One last time, I promise. I do not know how to notification setting, nothing. Ah, now it shouldn't beep at me, hopefully. So, Maker Bats, LOL, thanks for the clarity. I think I may have been a little more confusing, but I hope that helped. I thought I just turned off all the notifications and I'm still getting beep beep beeps. Oh well. That shows you how professional I am. So, oh, it did help. Okay. What are you working on? What stretch fabrics are you making? Are you making leggings? Are you making a top? Are you, like, where's the application? Because swimwear is a whole beast of itself because of the 4-way stretch versus a 2-way stretch versus, anyways, I can go off on that for a bit. But, okay, let me see. Okay. So another character I kind of wanted to talk about was Uhura from Star Trek. She passed away this year, which made me very sad. But I was working on patterning her dress, and Odin actually sent me the official Star Trek manual pattern that they have for the female dress uniform. And that wasn't the same pattern as what Uhura was wearing. Technically, their seaming was different. I really liked the way they did the seaming because they had the emblem. They had the seaming kind of coming out as they were parallel darts, but they're like, anyways, they had the darts coming from that, and I thought it was a really cool design. And I was like, oh my gosh, that's her seaming. But then when I look closer, because they have her outfit on display at some aerospace museum. I don't know, but I got some really good up close pictures, and she has a definite waist seam. She has the traditional princess seams, and then the neckline kind of comes out. And then the way they did her sleeves, I believe, I have to look at it again. I would have to pull it back up. But let me pull up that picture real quick. Uhura. Images. I remember her sleeves being interesting. Here's the good one. Because I believe they tried to get rid of the shoulder seam. Yeah, that was it, that they put the shoulder seam on the top of that one. I remember that was really interesting, the way they had done her sleeves. That was like my favorite part of her outfit. So I broke it down into a pattern based off of one I had. But then I ended up using the fabric that I bought to make that outfit to make 2 other things completely unrelated, but They did turn out awesome, so I have to just go back to the fabric store. It was really cheap. It was only like $4 a yard for that really nice stretch velvet. Um, so I'll be going back and getting some of that. Oh, okay. You're making a Zentai suit for Skeletor. Let me look at Skeletor. Oh, nice. So you're gonna make your own suit. I could see that. Now my question is the hands. Are you gonna do gloves? I know that you can get the full body suits that have the gloves built in, and then you can get the ones where you have the hands are separate. I prefer being able to access my fingers, especially if I want to text or eat or anything while wearing a costume. Like even hiding a slit on the wrist or in the seam so that you can slide your hand out and put it back in. That's what they used to do with those long opera gloves. You see how they have the little slits at the wrist with the buttons? It's so that you can get a tighter fit, but you can also get your hand out and use your hand without having to take the whole glove off, because when you have those the leather gloves, it's a little bit of a process to get your arm in the glove, and then it's a little bit of a process to get it off. So if you really just need your hand, you can kind of slide out of the little buttonholes on the wrist. So if you are doing a cosplay or a costume that has like your hands covered, I would like I'd like to think of an exit strategy if it's going to be worn for comfort. Now, if it's just for like a shot, a lot of times I'm like, comfort's mumfort. Yeah, just get through it, get it over with, and then you'll get comfortable afterwards. But if you're going to be wearing it for an evening, you want to be comfortable. Oh, you're not sure what you're doing for hands yet? Yeah. Yeah, because his hands are full blue and they have nails. Now, one thing that I learned from the makeup artist I used to work with, Paula at Smosh, she would use fake nails, like press-on nails, whenever we needed like if we had a severed hand prop or something like that, she would like put like press-on nails onto it and then like put dirt. Oh my gosh, it looked so gross and realistic as soon as those nails are on. So, like if you get a glove or whatever, you could totally put on press-on black nails onto the top. You can either stitch them in, glue them on, depends on the fabric, honestly. But if you put nails at the tips, that just kind of gives it that seals the deal clickiness. I don't know, but that sounds like fun. Yeah. Okay. Oh my gosh, it's been like 25 minutes. These are very short streams. I'm only doing them for about 30 minutes. So if you guys have any other questions before I go, please ask me. Otherwise, I'm just going to geek out on Ura for like a few more minutes before I have to go. But in breaking down her costume, I started with the shape of the dress. I took one of my patterns that I made that I know fits me. Long sleeve basic bodice skirt pattern. And I took that and I took off all the seam allowances. So we're not even playing seam allowances. And I put the sleeves into into where they belong. I used a half sleeve pattern. So, and then I taped the sleeve into place, and then I continued. That's like I just kind of redrew the armpit seam. So I had my sleeve drawn in, attached to the bodice. And then I made sure I had a nice waistline. And then I drew in my princess lines. And then I drew in my neckline the way she had it. And then once I drew in all the lines that I wanted, I cut them apart. And then I added seam allowance, just a 1/4 inch seam allowance all around all my pieces that need to get sewn back together. And I believe on the skirt part, because I believe the opening is right here. If I let me look at that picture one more time. I believe she has her zipper in the front. Let me see. Because I know her little skirt is a wrap skirt and there's overlap. And then it overlaps into the princess seam. So the skirt overlaps into the princess seam. And then the zipper goes up through the collar. That's why it kind of lays a little funky, is because there's a zipper in the seam. And then there's an overlap at the skirt. So I drew the lines on the skirt and then I made two separate patterns, one with the underskirt, one with the overskirt overlapping. And then I added the seam allowances to that. And that's as far as I got on that project, because where I get stuck on projects is not the patterning, it's the cutting it out, because then you're committed, because then the fabric's used for that. But yeah. So let me see. Do you know of a durable fabric that won't fade in the sun? I have to make a new suit for my giant jack skeleton on my roof. Not sure what I'm doing for hands yet. And did you see my question above the hands comment? I think that's a jack skeleton for your roof. Okay, it's for the roof. Go plastic bags. Go garbage bags. They're black. Get the heavy duty black ones. You can still sew those through the sewing machine. Plastic isn't going to fade in the sunshine. Fabrics fade in the sunshine. Anything natural is going to 100% deteriorate in the sunshine. If silk will just dissolve in the sunshine. Cotton will fade in the sunshine. Polyester, nylon, synthetics, the dye is added when the fibers are in the goopy phase before they go through a spinneret and turn into a fiber. That plastic molten plastic before it turns into the fibers that they turn into the fabric. They add the color then in that phase, as opposed to making the fabric and then dyeing it, because plastic polyester, nylon, those kind of fabrics don't dye well at all, because it's hard to dye a synthetic. It's easy to dye a natural because they're more porous and more open to it, but they also fade easier. Synthetic fabrics, the dye is added in the molten phase before it's turned into the thread phase. So you're more likely to be fade resistant with a synthetic fabric. Nylon specifically, polyester kind of. Yeah, I have some old 70s clothes made out of nylon and polyester. They don't breathe. They smell funky, but the colors are still really, really bright. So I would 100% go synthetic, but because it's a roof decoration, I would get the heavy duty, the really thick plastic bags that they use for leaves and outdoor garbage cans, because there's the cheap, like really lightweight plastic bags, and they have like a really thinness to them, and they're shiny and they're not quite what you want. But then the really heavy duty black ones that are for like the giant leaf bags, they're not as shiny. They're more matte finish than the other ones, so they're not so fake looking, and you could probably get away with it a little bit better. But if you don't want it to fade and you want to use it every year and it's got to be outside and you don't have to be comfortable, you're not going to be wearing it or sweating in it, go for a plastic bag. And then also you can use a wood burner if you wanted to melt like weld seams or weld buttons, or you know what I mean, like you can weld it versus sew it in some places. Definitely practice before you like commit to like, I'm just gonna weld this together. Just like see if you are able to. But if you're using plastic, you can weld it. You can also weld like synthetic fabrics with a wood burner, like organza. um, a lot of a lot of like the flowers and stuff like that, you can like use a wood burner to melt the layers of organza together before cutting them or sewing them, or you can cut multiple layers using a wood burner to cut the organza out if it's like a nylon synthetic. It doesn't work with silk. It only works with the synthetics, but it's not something anyone ever talks about because why would you melt fabric? But welding totally works. And my friend Yelenia actually told me about that because I wanted to make a flower petal skirt and I was going to melt the edges so that it gave it a curled finish. And she was telling me when she was making organza flowers and they melted the edges, she would use the wood burner to like melt them all together. And I'm like, oh yeah, that's brilliant. So, oh, yeah, I think I may have been way all over the place on that question, but that's what this is. So let's see. Make your bets. I didn't think about plastic. Thanks. Oh, good. I'm glad that that works. But yeah, we are at 30 minutes. I'm really glad that you guys all made it here and listening to me ramble about Halloween costumes. I will be here next week. I was thinking about doing it on Wednesday. I know last week I did it Friday, and this week I did it Thursday. So I think next week I'm gonna try for Wednesday and see how that day works for you guys. But I work till 3, and then I have to get home and then decompress, and then so it is what it is. I know I'm in California. Nobody is on this time frame, but I will try and be back here next week on Wednesday at around 4:30 my time. And we'll keep talking about all the fun things that we want to do for Halloween. And maybe I'll actually find some of the projects that I was working on so I can show you guys. But till next week, thank you guys. I'll see you guys next time. Bye.